Okay, so picture this, a massive naval battle. But the only enemy is chaos itself. That is the absolutely bizarre and tragic story of the Battle of May Island. This wasn't a fight against some foreign power, nope. It was a fight against fog, against fear, and against a series of fatal, catastrophic errors.
And this really is the central mystery, isn't it? I mean, how do you lose a naval battle when there is no enemy? You've got a whole fleet of the Royal Navy's most advanced warships. We're talking battle cruisers, destroyers, and these brand new revolutionary submarines, all steaming out for a major exercise. And yet, by the end of one single winter night, it's a total catastrophe. There were no German U-boats, no enemy mines, not a single torpedo fired. So, what on earth happened?
Just look at this. This is the bow of the light cruiser HMS Fearless. Now, that damage wasn't caused by an enemy shell. It got mangled after ramming one of its own submarines. This one single shocking image really captures the self-inflicted, almost unbelievable nature of this disaster.
Right, so the name Battle of May Island is actually a piece of dark gallows humor that the survivors came up with. Because, there was no enemy. It was just a horrific series of accidents during a single naval exercise called Operation EC-1. Let's take a look at the staggering cost of that one night.
105. That's how many British sailors lost their lives.
Two state-of-the-art submarines were sent right to the bottom of the sea.
5 separate catastrophic collisions happened between 8 different ships.
And all of this death and destruction, it all unfolded in just 75 minutes. It was this cascade of failures that happened with just breathtaking, terrifying speed.
So you have to be asking, how did this perfect storm of errors even come together? Well, to understand that, we need to look at the immense pressures of World War I, this desperate gamble on a new kind of technology, and the mission rules that basically put these sailors on a collision course with each other.
At the very heart of this story is this machine, the K-class submarine. It was a new, totally revolutionary type of vessel designed to solve a really critical wartime problem. They were built to be the secret weapon of the Royal Navy's Grand Fleet, a submarine that could finally keep up with the fast-moving battleships.
And this right here, this gets to the core of the problem. You see, submarines were traditionally slow, ambush predators, but the K-class, with their powerful steam turbines, could hit 24 knots on the surface. For the very first time, a submarine flotilla could actually act as an advanced screen for the main battle fleet. But that incredible speed came at a huge cost. They were notoriously difficult to handle, with really poor visibility and a massive turning circle. In fact, the crews even had a nickname for them, the Calamity class.
And these were the rules for the operation. I mean, just think about it. Take these fast, clumsy submarines and order them to travel at over 20 knots in a tight formation at night, through patches of thick sea mist. Each ship was only showing a single tiny shielded blue light on its stern to the vessel behind it. And to top it all off, complete radio silence to avoid alerting the Germans. It was, quite literally, a recipe for disaster.
Every catastrophe has a starting point, right? A moment where a single crack starts to spiderweb through the entire system. And for this fleet, on January 31st, it was a simple mechanical failure on one single submarine that triggered the entire chain reaction.
This timeline just shows how fast everything went wrong. At 7 p.m., everything is routine. It's just an exercise. But by 8:45, the operation is over, leaving a scene of just utter devastation and death in the cold waters of the Firth of Forth.
So it all started right here. At around 7 p.m., the 13th Submarine Flotilla had to change course to avoid a couple of minesweeping trawlers. But during this maneuver, the rudder on submarine K-14 jammed hard, forcing it to swing sharply out of its disciplined formation and right into the path of the ships following behind it. In the blackout conditions and the swirling mist, the next sub in line, K-22, completely lost sight of K-14's tiny stern light. When K-14 finally managed to free its rudder and tried to get back into formation, K-22 suddenly appeared out of the murk and slammed right into its side. 2 men on K-14 were killed instantly. Now both submarines were crippled, dead in the water, and totally invisible to the rest of the massive fleet steaming straight for them.
So the first collision was a tragedy in itself. But what came next was a complete breakdown of command and control. A terrifying domino effect as more and more ships sailed into a kill zone they didn't even know existed.
The 2 disabled subs were a deadly, unseen obstacle. The crew of K-22 actually managed to fire a warning flare. A whole squadron of enormous battlecruisers thundered past, and they narrowly avoided them. Well, all except for one. The last ship in the line, the 20,000-ton HMS Inflexible, didn't see the warning in time and just plowed into K-22, crushing its bow and causing it to flood fast.
And here is the next fatal error, and it was born from good intentions. The commander of the 13th Flotilla, hearing faint signals of the collision, turned his remaining submarines around to go back and help. But remember, they were under strict radio silence, so they turned directly back into the path of the 12th Submarine Flotilla, which was still steaming ahead at 20 knots, completely blind to the chaos unfolding right in front of them.
And this is where the chain reaction just explodes into a full-blown catastrophe. The two flotillas meet head-on in the dark. The cruiser HMS Fearless smashes into K-17, sinking it in just 8 minutes. Then, hearing sirens and seeing the chaos, submarine K-4 comes to a stop. While the sub behind it, K-6, can't react in time and slices K-4 almost in two. As K-4 is sinking with all 55 men aboard, it gets struck a final, sickening time by K-7. It was pure, unmitigated hell.
When the sun finally rose, the horrifying scale of this friendly fire disaster was crystal clear. But this was the middle of a world war, and the Royal Navy had absolutely no intention of publicizing one of its worst accidents. So what followed was an official policy of silence that would last for generations.
For decades, the 105 sailors who died that night had no public recognition whatsoever. Their families were just given the short, heartbreaking news that they had died on active service. It wasn't until 2002, 84 years later, that this memorial was finally put up in the nearby town of Anstruther, overlooking the very waters where they died. And this was the official finding. A hastily put-together court of inquiry blamed several officers for what happened, but when the case went to a court-martial, the charges of negligence were not proved. No one was officially held responsible. The verdict basically buried the story, closing the book on any kind of public accountability. And so, the history just stayed hidden. The official files were sealed under the Official Secrets Act, and the story of the Battle of May Island faded from all but the most private memories. It actually took until 1994 for the records to be declassified, allowing the full, incredible story to finally be told. The wrecks themselves just sat silently on the seafloor for nearly a century before they were properly surveyed in 2011. The story of the Battle of May Island is such a powerful reminder that history isn't just about what we remember, but also about what gets buried by shame, by secrecy, or sometimes just by the simple passage of time. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible stories are still out there, waiting in sealed archives, or just lying silently on the ocean floor?